Hello and welcome back to Gay by Gay. My name's Adam.
I'm JJ.
And today we're going to talk about our upbringing. Or something. So you grew up in...
Vancouver. I was born in Vancouver, actually not far from where I live now, and lived there until I was about 6 years old, and then we moved to the suburbs because my parents wanted me to have a sort of suburban upbringing.
Because of all the gun violence downtown?
No, I mean, I just think that, I think the reason why most sort of young families want to move their children to the suburbs, there's kind of a sense that, the pace of life is a little bit more chill. Mm-hmm. There's better schools, better community.
Easier access to drugs.
Easier access to drugs, which of course was a leading priority as well. And the fact is too, is both my parents still worked downtown. And this was actually a very good thing for me because I really got very used to, very early on, commuting back and forth from downtown to the suburbs and vice versa.
I imagine your upbringing to be like Degrassi Junior High, where you see the kids riding the bus and stuff or on public transit with their little backpacks and learning life lessons from strangers in the big city.
I knew a lot of the so-called latchkey kids when I was growing up, right? It's like we'd walk home from school and then they'd have the key and we'd just hang out in their home until, mom and dad who were off working in the big city would come back. And it was nice. I liked it a lot. You grew up in the smallest of small towns, right?
Yeah, the suburbs of all suburbs. Lethbridge, Alberta, which was about, I think when I was growing up, maybe 65 or 70,000 people. It's not like a small town.
No, it's one of the biggest cities in Alberta. Although, like most parts of sort of rural Canada, that sort of number declines after the big two. Did you have a conception that you lived in a small town? Were you aware of that as a young person?
Yes. Yeah, because we traveled quite a bit to Calgary. Yeah. I knew what big cities were from a pretty early age. So I was aware. It never felt like as small a town as I see it now. The other factor is that not only is Lethbridge quite small, but it's quite conservative, as a lot of small towns are as well. It's there's a high Mormon population. So I think that, if anything, had a bigger impact on my upbringing. How
did you become aware that it was a conservative community? How did that manifest in young Adam's mind?
That's a good question. Well, it is apparently, there's a lot of churches and a lot of old people.
Yeah.
and I went to school with a lot of Mormons. I was aware of what Mormonism was. And the fact that I wasn't Mormon from a pretty early age. The high school I went to is kind of unofficially Mormon. We would do something in the mornings, we would have health class while they went to seminary or whatever the equivalent is.
Whenever I meet small town people, I often think about them, and I don't know if this is a very condescending way to think about them, but I often think oh, they must be watching those TV shows of just any TV show because they're all set in the city, and they must be thinking, oh, someday, wistful. Did you feel that way? Did you feel...
I have New York posters on my wall.
Exactly.
No. There's something about giant cities that I enjoy for a fleeting moment where you're oh, sights. And then you think about living there and just that overwhelming, I don't know. There's still a part of me that loves being in a small town, which I think is why I like Vancouver, because Vancouver has all the things that a big city has, but it does not feel like a big city. You can walk the downtown in 25 minutes. You grew up in a big city, and you came out before I did.
Yeah.
And I grew up in this small town, and I came out when I was 21 or 22, which in the grand scheme of, when people come out is quite late. Mm-hmm. So do you think that you growing up here contributed to your being more comfortable?
Yeah, probably. I'd say so, because I never felt that it was socially stigmatized in sort of the milieu in which I was raised. That this was something that the teachers spoke openly about. I was very aware that there was gay neighborhoods and gay clubs and this sort of thing. And as well too, it was interesting because when I started dating, I started, online dating. Mm-hmm. And so I would meet guys and we'd always go on dates downtown. We'd always just be hanging out in the big city, going to restaurants and stuff. And I don't know, it just seemed very natural. It just seemed that there was a gay component of life in Vancouver, and it was nothing that anybody felt particularly shamed or uptight about.
So jealous.
Something that I'm very interested in with people from small towns is how you sort of became aware of gayness as a thing. Was there any gay people or gay institutions or anything that?
There was the odd teacher that everyone knew was gay, but they were always the subject of ridicule. It was horrible. As far as the dating thing, I got started online too. We grew up luckily enough with the internet to be able to chat with people on on ICQ. The atmosphere in Lethbridge growing up is kind of poisonous because there is no, it isn't now, it was, because there was no gay culture at all. So people who were gay and grew up in Lethbridge and never left Lethbridge would still be online, and they'd still be in the closet, and they'd still, in their 40s and 50s and 60s, and they'd still be, I don't want to say preying on, but kind of preying on people who didn't know better. I got caught up in that a couple times, and it creates, I don't know, like I was scared of the culture. I was scared of the people I had met. I'd scared, like the experiences I had were not positive because they were just like caught up in this like, I don't know, horrible self-hating kind of tension. And with that as kind of my example of what it is to be a gay man, it was this like ebb and flow of like, oh yeah, no, I am gay. And then you're like, no, I don't want to be that. Now people come out when they're 12 in Lethbridge and there's QSAs and it's all over the place. But I think that it kind of, the culture there, maybe the religious culture or the size of the town really contributed to my fear of coming out, I think.
I've gone out with like small town gay guys before, and they'll often talk about how like when they first move to the big city, it's almost too liberating in a way, and then they make a lot.
You know what? No, I didn't, because I came in so cautious. I came in with that mentality of like, no, I'm gonna have a straight relationship, but just with a guy, and I'm gonna, I came in wanting to oppose that so much. I don't think I really changed.
You brought your small town values to the big city.
I did.
That's
How
a good
boring.
thing.
No, it's not. In the comments below, tell us about where you grew up. And gay or straight or in between, how do you think that had an impact on you, I guess?
Yeah. What were your experiences? How did they shape you into the man or woman that you are today?
I think horrible experiences or great experiences.
All of the above, yes.
I kind of wish I'd come in and was just like, oh,
yeah,
clothes are off.